gentlemen, the Uncutt Podcast.
Oh no, you do the thing. I get confused every time I try to do the thing.
Don't worry, I got it.
It's the best intro in podcasts. Matt Minnick's back. Nick White, Robbie Cutthroat's over there. I still can't point the right direction. I do 2 fucking podcasts for 4 hours and I still can't point.
Right is left, left is right.
Yeah,
right.
Shit happens. Welcome back, Matt.
Thanks, buddy.
It's been quiet without you.
Being sick sucks, man.
Yeah, dude. Well, dude, had a bunch of crazy guests. Tonight we have a man who has escaped from the Florida territory. Who in 3 days, 3 days from when we're filming this, is facing the man, the king, Minoru Suzuki, and is I think if I'm right, is the first one of our guests who's actually also in our intro. So
that's true. I think you are absolutely right.
If my math is right.
Speaking of that intro, shout out to TJ Vegas.
Shout out to the indie movement. Shout out to Just Plain Filthy. Shout out to the new Kill Murray album dropping 10/22. I didn't forget you, TJ. Don't worry. Love you, buddy. Tonight, and he also made this badass video that's about to drop. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's guest, Anthony Henry.
Back up into a suplex. Straight out of the as he couldn't get Anthony Henry off his feet over his shoulders. Right here. Bullet in a Tarantino movie. Oh, the push. Involves Anthony Henry.
You're the best video guy, dude. Anthony, man, it's good to have you on the show.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Definitely, that video was hype. So
that's what he does.
That's
yeah.
So
thanks for having me on.
So, man, we're gonna start with the question that I try to ask everybody: how much of your offense has Toby Farley stolen?
I think he actually stole more of my tag team partner's offense than mine.
That's fair. Fair.
As well as his look at various times. But you know,
I remember his Nick Mondo and Chris Hero phases. So yeah, but the legitimate first question: what was the moment, man, in your life where you knew you wanted to be a pro wrestler?
You know, I get asked that a lot, and my answer is always pretty similar. I don't have a moment. There's never a time that I can think of like where it clicked and I was like, yo, I don't think I want to do this. All I ever remember was doing it. And so like from an early age of like having wrestling buddies and little stuffed animals or stuffed wrestlers in my living room in my underwear, being like 6 years old, performing these wrestling moves. Like those are my earliest memories of actually like doing it, but it just like I just never stopped. So it just evolved, and I went from doing that to, you know, wrestling with my friends and wrestling in the backyard to eventually finding a school, and you know, I just never grew out of this phase that's what my mom referred to it as. Yeah, so there was never a moment. It's just always been there.
Awesome, man. So it's always been there. So obviously you had to start off as a fan before you start emulating it. So take us on your journey as a wrestling fan. I mean, like, what were your first introduction into wrestling, your first favorites, your first most hated wrestlers?
Sure. So, my earliest memories are more from like WCW, actually even more like NWA, and watching those with my dad Saturday nights and whatnot. And like my first favorite wrestler that I can remember was like old Surfer Sting. Was a big fan of Sting. And over the course of time, of course, those favorite wrestlers changed and the styles changed and things like that. But Sting was my earliest memory, and then I went through various phases. We can name a whole ton of those, but Sting was the earliest.
So, first of all, it's awesome having you here.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask you kind of a haymaker question because you're actually probably the first guest we've had that I can ask this question to. Who throws a harder slap, Walter or James Drake?
James Drake.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Easy. That's an easy one.
That's a question I've wondered for years because I've seen them both throw slaps in person, and the chops are just brutal. So I'm curious. I was always curious to see which one hurt more.
Walter's just really good at making it sound good.
Okay.
So so in wrestling, chops, slaps, things of that nature inevitably always hurt. And sometimes the ones that don't make noise are the ones that hurt worse. So there's really nothing more annoying than like the fans that will yell out weak. It's like, so will you stop because he's going to hit me again to try to get this noise that may or may not happen. And I'm going to get hit like 20 times just to suffice you. And this hurts. So yeah, they always hurt. It's just a matter of Walter just has a knack for making them sound like crazy loud.
Yeah, he does.
So speaking of James, friend of the podcast, friend of all of ours, like on a personal level, obviously probably one of your best friends, clearly. Do you prefer doing the tag team thing with him or doing the singles matches and being able to just tell that one-on-one story?
I like both, but I've had this conversation recently and just several times throughout the years since we started teaming and with various people, and the conclusion always becomes the same. And it's that I think like JD and I are both very, very capable as singles wrestlers. We can tell great stories, we can have great matches, and we can go on there with anybody. And I have no doubt about that. However, when I look at us as a team, it changes things because he and I both agree that while we're really great singles wrestlers, when we're a team, there's just something different about it. It's special. We're just a different animal. And so to answer that question, I think if I had a preference, it's going to be as a team. And then also, we're both getting older and my body hurts, and teaming means I get to do less.
Entirely fair.
Yeah, makes total sense. Going back to your training as a professional wrestler, how did you make the transition from fan wrestling zealot to actually learning the craft? I did some research, and you were trained by a Sal Ringaro and Todd Sexton. Can you tell us a little bit about your transition?
Yeah. So initially, of course, I think like the goal was always to do this. I don't know, like, because I was a standard teenager. I don't know how much ambition I had. I was just doing this thing. It was fun, and maybe somewhere in the back of my head, I was like, one day, we'll find a school and we'll do this. But really, it became more of a happenstance thing. Like, we're actually, while we usually would do our backyard wrestling in my friend's backyard, we one day randomly decided we were going to film a show at an actual park that was nearby that had just opened up. And so we go to this park and we do these these matches, and we're filming it, and the security guard is watching us, and we're like, oh no, and he comes up to us, and he was just entertained by it, so he didn't really care that we were doing it at the park, as long as we weren't messing anything up. But somewhere within that conversation we had with this security guard, he mentions that there's this school just like right up the road, and I live in Augusta, Georgia. And so, of course, we'd never heard of this school. They know there was a professional wrestling school in the area. So, of course, me and my two other friends, we go and we're going to go check this school out. And so we do. We end up signing up, of course, and the rest is history. However, there's more to it, because while that's what started it, the initial school I went to wasn't that great. It's actually ran by a guy who was actually never even a wrestler. He was just a referee. So we learned.
How much did that cost you?
I really don't remember, honestly. Probably over $1,000 though, I'm sure.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, we basically learned how to bump, maybe take a couple of things that he did know how to take and do. And yeah, so I did that for about a year, and then of course I went to NWA Wildside, which is where I was trained by Sal and Todd Sexton. NWA Wildside, if you don't know, was a very, very popular place, especially in the 2000s. It was kind of actually a pretty big indie for that time. AJ Styles was trained there, Jimmy Rave. Man, I could go on and on. Of course, Sal Renaro and Todd Sexton. And they were running the school, and I went up there and actually started doing what they did, these Friday shows, which were like, they had their TV shows on Saturdays, which were like bi-weekly. And then they had the Friday shows, which happened every week. And that was kind of more like, the guys who were coming up trying to get on TV. So I went up there, watched the first show, ended up starting coming down on Fridays to do those and learn. And eventually it just became to the point where I was like, hey man, I'm gonna go, move up this way, because this is the place to be. And they had a training school, and so I was like, I'm gonna go get trained for real. And so yeah, I moved up to like Athens, which was about 30 minutes away from the school. And yeah, did that for about another year. Good experience, learned a whole lot more than I did obviously than I did at the first school, but that was kind of the start of everything.
Now, when you go into the two different schools that you went to, what would be some missing piece or something that you wish that they would have taught you, that looking back now, you're like, damn, if I was running a school, I would want to teach somebody about that now?
Yeah, so I think like Wildside did pretty well in terms of covering most things. I think for me, if I was a trainer, definitely concentrating on the psychological aspect of it, because I think that is what is kind of missing a lot of times. You'll learn technique, you'll learn how to do spots and various things like that, but I think the actual storytelling element and the basics and just how to get really good at that stuff and tell a story, I think sometimes that's lacking, and that would be definitely my concentration.
So speaking of like psychology, let's talk about NXT, where you just left.
Sure.
But obviously they don't let you do everything that you were doing on the indies. They want you to pull back a little bit. Do you feel like they let you be a version of yourself while you were down there, or was it kind of how we're seeing what they want to do now, where they're just completely reforming everybody?
I think I think you do have some freedom to kind of be yourself, but you're being yourself within the confines also of like it's like they have parameters, and so you do have the freedom, but like you also are restricted in how much of that you can show. So I think a big problem is like with people fully being themselves is being afraid of how they're going to be viewed if they do so. It's not necessarily like they're coming up and saying, don't do this. It's more so like just based off the training and like what we're doing in there, what you think the coaches want from you. And it's always like, it was always a matter of like trying to make sure that you appeased this coach, this coach, this coach, and this coach all at the same time. And they all have their different like viewpoints on the same things that we're doing, which is a typical task. And I'm sure you can imagine. So if you got like 6 different people you're trying to please in this one match, and each coach has their different viewpoint on it, it becomes difficult. So doing all of that while also trying to find yourself and be yourself within this major company can be a difficult task. So it's hard to say that like they're like, don't be yourself. It's more so, I think, just all the pressure that is felt from just every direction. There's pressure coming, and so I think that's a lot of times what is the determining factor in that. If that makes sense, I don't know if that does.
Let's talk a little bit about the art of the promo. I know Nick and Matt and we hang out with a lot of people who are really into promos. Can you tell us about the evolution of your promo skills from way back when you went to wrestling school to your time in the indies, and how that might have changed up when you went to the big leagues, when you went to the WWE?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's something that like I'm not necessarily known for even now. But it's definitely something that was not something I was very good at in the very beginning at all. So my progression, like from the time that I started to now, is drastically different and improved. I think the key to promos, in my opinion, is, especially now, is just being that version of yourself, being authentic, being real. I think that's the best way to come across and be genuine, because that's what people want, I think, now. Back in the day, of course, we had these larger than life characters, and I think we still do, but I think it's also finding a way to portray that character in an authentic way. JD Drake, again, obviously really good at just being himself. And I think that's what I try to do as well in promos now. It's just be that version of me, but the over the top version.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's expand on that a little bit, because with your time in NXT, and of course your relationship with JD and everything like that, of course Drake works for AEW, and with All Elite Wrestling going on 3 years this year, it seems like, in the exponential rate that they've grown. Can you talk about how them being around has been beneficial or non-beneficial for independent wrestlers?
I mean, I think that's very clear to see. Like, the benefits is that there's more work to go around now. There's more opportunities for people on the independents to be paid for what they do. Not that there's not money just on the independents, but I think the security of having a salary or a contract where you're guaranteed money is a completely different ballpark, because the thing about independent wrestling is we are independent contractors, so we are constantly having to hustle for this money and get these bookings.
Right.
To get a certain amount of bookings in a given month. Are we good?
Yeah,
all
we're
that
good
get
now.
cut out?
Everything froze there for about 3 seconds.
Okay.
I'm like, oh God, no.
Yeah,
usually me.
so I don't know how much you caught of that. Don't know how much of that was caught, but basically I was just saying that, like, as independent wrestlers, money in independent wrestling, however, the problem can be sometimes that you have to find those bookings. You're constantly having to hustle to get those bookings. And if you just don't happen to get those bookings in a given month, that means obviously you're not going to get paid as much. So your salary is not guaranteed. Whereas you got a contract, it's guaranteed. So now we got AEW and we have, NXT. So there's just all these opportunities. And you got other companies too, of course, like MLW and other companies that are also offering contracts and offering guaranteed money. So overall, the landscape of professional wrestling right now, it's a good place. A lot of opportunities.
Appreciate it.
So I'm gonna ask this. I've been sitting here trying to think of a political way to ask it, but there's really not. Um, guys like you, Alex Zane, Kurt Stallion, guys like that were all signed, and then it seemed like within a year you were gone. Do you feel like you got a fair shake, or?
How could you really?
I mean, I hate. I was trying to think of the nice way to say it, but there's really not. Like,
Dude, so as time passes by, I kind of like, I've tried to really go the route of like not trying my best to not be bitter about the whole situation. But, honestly, the more time that it passes by, it's almost, in some ways, I get even angrier because, okay, if you really, really think about it, and I've said this on a couple of other podcasts, but I don't mind saying it again. Before I signed, there's a whole story here. Like, I was almost signed in 2019, stemming from various things we did with Evolve and a tryout I did. Was really, really being looked at, was basically seen by these doctors before a show, and was told that I had these undiagnosed concussions, and that led to WWE saying they were no longer interested in me. Evolve was no longer interested in me because of their connection with WWE. So I was left in a place where I didn't know what the hell I was going to do when it came to professional wrestling. Was I even going to do this anymore? So I was in this place, decided, I was going to quit, went into this deep depression over it, had my farewell little indie tour set up, all these matches I wanted to do. And then at the end of it, I get called back by WWE. Do you still want to retire? Like, what? Okay. Depends. My wife tells me I should go ahead and do this thing because if I don't, I'll regret it. And I was already angry at the company, really, because of the first situation I went through. But I decide, okay, let's do it. So we go back, we do it. And, of course, I get signed. Fantastic. Wow. There's, gold at the end of the rainbow or whatever.
Dream come true.
Dream come true. So then I get there. I move my entire family, 6.5 hours away to this new place, get set up in this nice house. It's almost like we're living in this fantasy land. And I'm doing it off professional wrestling, something I've been doing for like the past 18 years at that point, and struggled and went through all of this adversity. And now, like, okay, cool. We finally get something at the end of it. Lo and behold, I was all wrong, because 6 months later, after getting injured, herniated disc, pinched nerve, loss of strength on one side, and performing the entire time that I was there on television with this injury, already having to change things that I could do in the ring and adjust because I had no choice. Then, after 6 months, I'm basically just called by John Laurinaitis and told, hey, due to budget cuts, you're no longer needed, you're fired. And that's that.
Even though we're making a shit ton of money, kid.
And
It breaks.
as much, and like I said, so as much as I try to not be bitter about it, it's kind of hard not to, because no, I wasn't given a fair shake. I was just another statistic, I didn't fit what they needed anymore, and they didn't care that I moved my entire family there. I'm just another number. And so in that aspect, when you look at it from that point of view, it's kind of hard not to be pissed off about it.
Yeah. Well, man, I gotta say thank you for the candor to answer that question, man. That's some deep stuff. I'm gonna throw this at you. Like, do you blame the COVID situation for a lot of this crap? Do you think things could have been different if things hadn't have if all that hadn't happened in 2020?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, COVID definitely contributed to some of the stuff I was going through because, basically the WWE, the initial thing with the concussion happened, and that was right before COVID. And then I'd already kind of decided that I was going to be done at that point. And then COVID hit, so it got even worse. So
Gotcha.
it definitely made it worse for me. I don't know if it would have changed the whole landscape of things or not.
Yeah. I got to imagine it had some contributing part to it.
Possibly.
I feel like this is going to be like a rhetorically stupid question to ask you, but let's just say with NXT 2.0 and the changes that they have, of course, with Vince and Bruce Pritchard taking over more of the control from Trips and everything like that. Let's say in a year or whatever less, they decide to call you one more time. Are you going to answer, or are you going to tell them to kiss your ass?
No, they can F themselves.
Attaboy. That's what I thought.
Yeah. There's no chance.
Right,
like
dude.
John Laurinaitis when he called me, and
What if it was guaranteed? What if it was a contract guaranteed, like ironclad?
Ironclad? Depends on
They
how
have
much
too many outs in that contract, Robbie.
I mean, it depends on how much money. If there's like no way they can fire me,
I mean, you would have a definite case for some contingency. You've been
that might be a
jerked around
different story.
twice.
That might be a different story because I do have a family, and like I'm not a money guy per se. I'm not like, I don't have to live a lavish lifestyle or anything, but money is not a bad thing, especially when you have a family and you want to feel secure and just feel comfortable. So I would say in that situation, possibly, but in general, if they were just to offer me some kind of deal, probably not.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
man.
that's fair. Well, speaking of opportunities, I was going to hold off on this, but it's kind of just right here in front of our face. Get the opportunity of a lifetime this weekend, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you've got. Well, I mean, I remember talking to James like a year and a half ago, and being like, "It'd be really kick ass to see Anthony wrestle Minoru Suzuki one day."
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, dude. Because I remember seeing you at Subgraphs. Obviously, I'd seen you before that because I watch way too much indie wrestling. But I remember seeing you at Subgraphs and just being like, I kind of want to just see how hard this dude could hit with somebody that hits him back. You know what I mean? Like, I just love those, like, where it's a fight. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think we all kind of expect Saturday night to be a fight. So,
oh yeah.
How excited are you for this? And are you having to kind of keep it contained so it's not like the fanboy moment when the bell rings?
This is about, so I'm a really even-keeled guy. I'm a really laid-back guy for the most part. There's not much that excites me. And especially at this point with wrestling, just everything I've been through. It's hard for anything to really get me going anymore in wrestling, and I don't watch much. And a lot of it's just been ruined for me, honestly. I mean, there's a lot of I won't say the love has been taken out because I still love what I do, especially the performance part of it. It's just, I have to distance myself in certain aspects because it just affects me in a different way now because of everything. However, when I was, told, actually, so I'll give you the scenario, right? So PWX is kind of like basically my home promotion, really. It's a place that JD and I both are from, and a place that has done a lot for us in our careers. And so, of course, it's one of the first places I was going to be coming back to. And initially, they offered me somebody else, also from New Japan. And it was a cool option. I was, all right, let's do it. But Will Ospreay couldn't do it. Would have been interesting. But the counteroffer was so the counteroffer was I get a call maybe the next day or something. And well, how about instead of him? And I'm like, okay, how about what do you think about Minoru Suzuki? I was like, what? I was like, that's way better option. I mean, like, that's way better. And they were like, they were in agreement. And so that's about as excited as I'm gonna get as a match for a match is this. Literally a guy who I've studied and watched for so many years, and I apparently can't call him a legend because I heard that like he recently said that he doesn't like being called a legend because I guess legends are done and over with, and he's still in the present, so he doesn't like it. So I won't call him a legend, but maybe an idol, of sorts, and somebody who's very much my style. And so I think this is about as big of a match that I could possibly have. And man, I don't know. Saturday's gonna be crazy. The atmosphere alone, I think, is gonna be crazy. And yeah, I haven't really been this excited about a match in a long time.
It's going to be a nice, slow Southern style contest, I think.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I
a
don't think
lot
so,
of
dude.
headlocks and just start slow and taper off. It'll be good.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's gonna be a war. He may not know it, but it's gonna be a war.
I'm down for that.
So let's talk about PWX. Let's talk. You started there in like 2012, and you were in some high profile matches. You had shots at championships, major titles and stuff. But it wasn't until let me see. It wasn't until 2016 at the 16 tournament that you won that tournament, and then you went on eventually to become the PWX champion. Being in that organization for so long, and then finally getting that top prize, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, that was a big deal for me because that was a company that had such a talented roster. I mean, like the setup for all of that, I basically did a dream series where like I literally wrestled everybody that there was to wrestle on the independent scene. Like I named like I don't know, I wrestled Tommaso 3 times, Tommaso Ciampa, Sammy Callahan, Zack Sabre Jr., Roderick Strong, so many guys that I was able to get in there with the best of the best of the best, and they put the faith in me to produce these matches and put on good performances. And so it's not necessarily, of course, having the belt or the title championship. It's not that. I don't think too many people really necessarily care about the actual belt and having it this prop because it's just a prop, right? It's more so about the pride and the respect that you get from being the top guy. And when you're a top guy at a promotion like PWX, it's a big deal. And it's something I had really, really worked for because honestly, my whole career has just been like an evolution of various goals, and you reach one goal and then you set another one, and I think that's life anyway, right? But so my goal initially was, hey, let's just get the PWX because that's the place to be in the South. Got there, and then it was all right. I'm not content with just being here. Now I want to be the best here, and I worked my way towards that. And then finally, it was like getting that championship was actually that final step of being the man there. And so, yeah, it's a big deal. One of my best moments, honestly, my entire career. So very, very cool.
Thank you, Ben.
Now, talking about some of your bigger moments that you've had in your career, of course, being PWX champion is going to be toward the top. What's 2 or 3 other moments where you can always look back on your career, even if it's 20, 30 years from now, you can look back on those moments and be like, you know what? I'm damn proud I lived in that moment.
So of course the PWX title win. I would say also winning the Evolve Tag Team Championships with Drake in North Carolina, which actually was a co-event with PWX that they did together, Evolve and PWX. So it was basically in front of our home crowd. So that was a very cool moment. And I think just for the simple fact of like doing it and saying that I did it and coming to WWE, coming in NXT, regardless of the situation and what happened, obviously I have to say that's a moment that I'm always going to remember because so many people worked their entire lives to get there. And I can at least say that I got there and was there for 6 months and was on television. So I did do it. And then also like another one. It hasn't led to anything significant yet. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I recently did some stuff with AEW, so that's another one. We'll see what happens there, but I was there. I was on their TV show, and I wrestled one of their best guys. So, yeah, those are the big ones that off the top of my head.
Appreciate it, man.
So, speaking of AEW, Robbie asked you earlier if Vince calls you and says, "Hey, come back," whatever. If AEW gives you that call and says, "Hey, we want to bring you on full time," is that a whole different story? I mean, do we get the extension of Anthony Henry at that point where we get to see more of you?
Yeah,
I think, man, if you could just get the exposure, I think it's huge.
I think that's a different story. I've been burned on more than one occasion by WWE now. So I have no interest in working with that company or those people. It's just, it is what it is. My experience with AEW, the one time I've been there, was very positive, and it seems like a very good atmosphere. And as long as the deal was right for me, then yeah, I could definitely see that happening.
Can you give us a little bit more insight into the AEW locker room? You said you were only there one time, but can you tell us about the atmosphere? As fans watching on TV, dude, the fever of the fans, dude, is pretty ferocious, dude. What's the vibe in the locker room? Is everybody upbeat?
Yeah. I mean, so the difference I would say is that, with NXT, with WWE, I would say that to some degree, it kind of felt like, I don't know, you're always like watching behind your back, kind of almost like, walking on eggshells, because you're always concerned about this or that, or, who's watching, who's judging you, whatever it is. AEW just felt more like, I don't know, it's almost like an indie show in a lot of ways, just very much more organized and, bigger production. Everybody was just laid back, relaxed, all positive. So it just felt like a really cool place to be. Everybody's very supportive of each other. So that was kind of the vibe I got.
Thank you, man.
So if somebody was to reach out to you and was wanting to learn about becoming a professional wrestler themselves, what would be a couple pieces of advice that you would want to let them know?
Yeah, so I would definitely say find a good school, find a reputable school, and then secondly, take it serious, take training serious in the gym. And I'm not saying you have to, look the part, whatever that means, but you have to be able to go. And especially in today's atmosphere, when it comes to wrestling, like, people can go now in the ring. You got to be able to match that pace. And so the physicality part of it is important. But also the psychological part is important. So pay attention to what, you're being taught. Pay attention to those who are doing a good job on their own. Those are the ones you want to take advice from, are the ones that are successful, because they're probably successful for a reason. Also, travel, get around. You can't stay in one spot, because if you do, a lot of people get trapped in a city or a town. They become a big fish in a small pond, and that's just a bad vibe, because you're never going to be able to progress or move on if you're that, because you're always going to be set and that you're just content with where you're at because you're the biggest fish. So yeah, I always say, like, there's this one quote that I always use. I don't know where I got it from, but I've heard it before. But yeah, just get comfortable being uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, that's generally when you're going to grow and evolve and become better. And definitely true in professional wrestling.
Damn good answer. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, very cool.
So when the time comes that you say, all right, I'm done with the in-ring stuff. Do you completely remove yourself from the business? Is it you go be Anthony Henry the guy instead of Anthony Henry the wrestler, or do you stick around and run a school? I mean, maybe not start your own promotion, but maybe that's something you would want to do. Or is it just fuck this shit, I'm out?
It's hard to say. You know, I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible when it comes to these answers, and like my relationship with professional wrestling has been up and down. It's been every which way actually, and it's been a love-hate relationship to some degree. When I went through the whole situation and depression and what we talked about earlier, I didn't watch wrestling. I didn't look at social media. I didn't want to see anybody talking about it. I didn't want to watch it at all because it made me angry. It made me mad, it made me upset to even look at it. And it was actually a good turning point for me because before that, all I knew was professional wrestling. I loved it so much that it was almost like my crutch. It was my support system. It was everything that I knew about myself. And I didn't know myself without professional wrestling. Like, who the hell is Anthony Henry, which is my real name, by the way. Who the hell is Anthony Henry, like, without wrestling? Who is he? And so going through that process, when I stopped watching and I stopped looking at social media and all this stuff, I had to kind of figure it out. And I figured out who I was. I figured out how to be happy without it and realized that there is a life without it. There's other things in life that I do and I do well. And so to answer that question, come back around and answer that question, I don't know. When it's time to be done, I could see myself contributing to some training possibly. I've done that here and there at a local school that's like an hour away. And I do like that part of it, the giving back part of it, because I did have that in some sense, but I didn't have a whole lot of mentors. I had the training, but I didn't necessarily have the mentors along the way to kind of like guide me. And so I think that's something that's missing a lot of times in professional wrestling. And if I could help out, you know, the guys coming up, the girls coming up, then I think that's really cool. So I don't know. It's kind of 50-50 for me, honestly. Roundabout way to answer that question, but I don't know because a lot of things are just uncertain for me when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about wrestling fans. I like to ask people on this show this question. You know, we got wrestling fans. They're very opinionated. A lot of times they're very misinformed. They're barking up wrong trees. They're on social media giving their opinions on everything. So if you could I don't know how to put this. If you could set the fans straight and you get this opportunity right now, what would you tell the fans about misconceptions in the business? And I'll let you just have it.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say if you have not stepped inside of a ring, if you have not attempted to do the things that we do inside of a ring, if you have not bumped, if you have not trained, if you have not experienced what we have experienced, then your opinion, not that it doesn't matter, but it only holds so much ground.
So much weight.
You can certainly, from an entertainment standpoint, if you do not understand or you're just not feeling a certain style or a certain match or a certain segment, you have that right. Just as we have that right, you know, when we watch a movie or whatever the case may be. Not my thing. That's fine. But when it comes down to the fans who are legit saying things like this guy or girl doesn't know what they're doing, they're awful, like that crosses the line to me because you haven't done this. You don't know. You have your preference and that's fine. Yeah. But to say somebody sucks or they don't know what they're doing or they're unsafe, yada, 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 you don't know. So you should shut up.
Thank you, man.
Speaking of that, this is a question that I've noticed has been very polarizing between people, especially on social media. The Miz, is he a Hall of Fame type of wrestler, or is he considered an overrated person?
I think it depends on how you look at it.
How do you feel?
So I feel like if you're able to generate that much success in a career, make that much money, then absolutely. Because at the end of the day, we could say whatever we want to say about what we like to see. We could say Dean Malenko was the greatest technical wrestler to ever exist, and maybe that's right, maybe it's wrong. However, how much money did Dean Malenko make? Now, he still probably made a lot of money, and he probably still does. But how much did he make in comparison to Hulk Hogan or The Rock or Cena, right? So we could say whatever we want to say, but it's still a business. It's still a business. So the number one goal in a business is to what? Make money. So if you find a way to make money and you find a way to make that much money over a course of several years in a career, then you're doing something right. That's all I know. That's the only way I know to answer that.
So now that you're back on the indies, I know you say you don't watch a whole lot, given how everything's gone. But there's got to be some people that you know of that you haven't wrestled before that you want the opportunity to wrestle. So
Yeah.
Who are some of those names?
So some that I can think of just like right off the top of my head. Josh Alexander from Impact. I think he is really, really, really good. Definitely someone that is up my alley in terms of style. Daniel Garcia has kind of recently kind of made my radar because just some outstanding performances he's had over the last year.
Those
of
matches
course.
with JD.
Oh yeah. He's had a couple of them, yeah, for sure. Who else? Daniel Makabe is another guy who's up my alley. Very talented.
Yes, please.
You don't sound like you're that ready to retire, yo.
I mean, there's definitely plenty of things that I still want to do. It's just, for me, it's just, I don't know. It's figuring things out. It's coming to terms with the current scene and figuring out where I stand amongst everybody else. And then, I'm getting older. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm hoping more so, of course, that some contract will come my way, because at this point in my career, that's just where I'm at. I like guaranteed money. So we'll see what happens. But obviously there's plenty of people that are out there that are doing their thing that I have been impressed with, that I would certainly like to get in the ring with.
I love tag team wrestling, and I saw that you got to work with the Street Profits back not so long ago before they made it to the big time. What are your thoughts on working with the Street Profits? Because I love them, dude. They're really entertaining.
No, they were awesome. It was actually they were doing their thing in NXT, and at the time that's when NXT people from the roster were coming in to Evolve, to work with the Evolve roster. And that was just basically the idea there. Was at the time, of course, that's not the case now, but at the time, they wanted the talent from NXT to be able to learn from the independent talent. It's kind of flip-flop.
I was there for one of it.
Yeah, that's kind of ass backwards, huh?
Yeah.
Hey,
I love it, though.
come and teach our guys how to do what you do.
Yeah, it is what it is. But that was the case at the time, and so they came in and I guess they were speaking with some people from the NXT roster, like, hey, we're coming to do this Evolve show. And I think maybe even Danny Burch or somebody was like, oh, you're working them? So he was like, because he knew us, of course. Listen to them, do whatever they say at the time. And so when they came in, we very much so called the match, and for the most part, and they were awesome. And Very humble, very, very nice guys. We had a blast working with them. Had a really good match, actually. We worked them a second time, had another great match with them. And clearly, they're superstars, very entertaining.
Thank you, man.
So with your time in Evolve, PWX, all the different companies, especially with like Evolve, I remember when I went and seeing Josh Briggs and so many of the other talent that was there. Who's somebody or even a couple people that you were surprised or you think still should make that push to the big leagues, as Robbie keeps saying?
Well, a lot of the talent that was on the roster is doing things or have been previously contracted. And, so I think everybody to some degree has had a great level of success. Even guys like, obviously, like Eddie Kingston, look at him now, So the talent that was on the roster with me, most everybody is really doing something or has had some level of success in a top promotion. Obviously, the guys who unfortunately were released with me, like Kurt Stallion, I feel like he's very talented. Josh Briggs obviously doing his thing in NXT still, so hopefully they do something with him. Joe Gacy, another great guy. There's really
I'm
nobody
curious
else.
what they end up doing with Joe now, though, with that whole uproar they had
Yeah.
about his character.
I kind of sort of heard about that. I haven't really watched it, but I kind of heard the gimmick and how the reaction was with that. So we'll see. But I think they'll probably still do something with him. They'll just have to kind of change some things about it. But another guy who, just popped in my head, Arturo Rojas or Adrian Jauji. Now he was also at the AWE or AEW tapings, the ones I did, and so hopefully they'll just do something with him there as well, because he's a guy who you're talking about a guy who is a legit badass. If people call me that, which I do have some legitimacy, he's a killer, and he's a legit killer, and also just a really nice guy, really great human being. And you're talking about a guy who essentially, he spent his whole career working for NXT, training under them, doing everything he was supposed to do. And just when he's getting called up to do bigger things, he gets scrapped and then fired or released, whatever it's fired, whatever. We were fired. But he's great. And I think he has a lot to show. And so I think he should be getting a lot of bookings on the independents. I think people should be looking at him because he's going to be one. I know he's doing, I think he's doing Bloodsport coming up, possibly. And so that's going to be, people are going to get to see him and they're going to be like, whoa. So he's probably the number one guy now that that's popped in my head that I think should definitely be doing more.
I agree with you entirely.
Talking about Arturo Rojas, Bloodsport, that whole kind of dynamic. A couple of my friends, when you did the Evolve show that was on the WWE Network, and you faced Arturo Rojas, that was their first exposure to you.
Yeah.
Do you prefer that kind of just a fucking fight? Or, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to say you looked like you were having fun, but you didn't look like you weren't enjoying yourself on some level.
No, yeah, I think so. You kind of find your niche in this thing, and you got to figure it out. That's kind of the whole key to this. Having a level of success is kind of figuring out where you fit in, and somewhere along the way, I figured it out. Due to my background in MMA and jiu-jitsu and all this stuff, and me kind of incorporating that into my style, it inevitably became more and more and more of my style, and it became a little less professional wrestling, a little more of that. And over time, I just kind of realized this is what people want to see from me. This is why people would buy a ticket to see me. They don't want to see me do headlocks and you know, these fancy flips. They want to see me kick the shit out of somebody. And so, yeah, you realize these things. And I gravitated towards that style, which is also why I was placed with Huas anyway, and was to kind of help him, I guess, in a way, like figure out how to put on matches in that style. Because obviously he knew how to do it, but putting together a match in terms of professional wrestling, but having that style is a little bit different. So I was helping him out in that way, and actually having the match at the Evolve Network special was like, that's one of my favorite matches, honestly. Like that was a match actually I broke down afterwards and got to the back and like laid on the floor and cried. And people come up to me thinking I was hurt. I'm like, no, I'm just really happy. I'm good. I'm good. Like that was a very fulfilling match, and yeah, so I do like that style. I'm very much into like shoot wrestling. If you've never seen shoot wrestling, that's more of like the blood sport style. But it's actually was a shoot style wrestling is what it's called, and like UWFI style, stuff like that, pancrase. It all kind of stems from that. But yeah, that's very much my thing at this point.
Robbie, I'm going to actually jump in on this one real quick, and I'll let you jump back over.
Feel free, man.
If you were going to have a blood sport type of match, who would you rather have in it? Ken Shamrock or Dan Severn?
Shamrock.
Yes.
I'm going to say Shamrock. I was always a Shamrock guy. I used to, like I've said this before, but like back in the day, Blockbuster, I would go buy wrestling or rent wrestling videos, but I'd also rent the older UFCs.
Yep.
And I was a
UFC 1 to 5.
Yeah. I was a really big fan of Ken Shamrock. Probably a lot of that had to do with the fact that he wore wrestling trunks and like a robe out, and he looked very much like a professional wrestler. And so I gravitated towards that. So I was a Shamrock guy.
Okay, man,
Robbie.
I don't know how many, like, I don't know, in a year, I don't know how many wrestlers there are on the planet. There's got to be tens of thousands, right? There's all these Ring of Honor, TNA, there's all these wrestling groups. How did it feel? Did it validate your career to be in the PWI 500 of the 500 best ranked wrestlers?
Oh, like when I was initially first time in it?
Yeah, like 2019, right?
Yeah. I don't even think the funny thing is like, again, I don't look at very much stuff right now, so none of it really. I know it just recently came out for this last year or whatever, and I don't even think I was in it, which is kind of funny because I was in WWE.
Let me check with my statisticians.
What's that?
Let me check my stats. Hold on.
I don't think I was in it, but the first time I was in it, honestly, it was pretty cool, just because you grow up and you get these magazines and you always look at the 500 and coming up as an independent wrestler, of course, you always want to be in it. And when I was finally put in it, it was pretty cool.
I bet, man. I bet.
People like to say now, like, oh, shut up, quit complaining about not being in PWF 500, quit crying about it, all this stuff. And like the people who say that, they'll post it on the social media, Twitter, whatever, and then people make fun of them. I'm like, why are you making fun of them? Like, is it the most important thing? Does it mean you're a great professional wrestler? Probably not. But is it also very cool to be in it? Yes, and there's nothing wrong with being proud of that. So
right. I mean, you could put rank anybody anywhere if they don't have the merit to justify it. For a successful career, I think it is a good validation.
Sure. There's nothing wrong with being proud of that.
Yeah. Well, it was like Drake said when I think I was actually the one that broke to him that he was 137 this year, and it was like, dude, that's the magazine I used to stand in Kroger and read.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how a lot of people feel. Like I got a few friends that were in it this year, and I talked to them, and they're like, yeah, dude, I used to fucking read that magazine at the grocery store when my mom shopped. Like. But man, we're closing in on an hour, which is, usually right around the cutoff point. So the last segment of the show is always, I give you full screen. I let you push whatever you want. Obviously appearances coming up, social media, whatever you want to talk about, man. Or if you just have a message that you want to send out, feel free. So with that, Anthony, it has been a pleasure. My computer's freezing. Oh, good God. Oh, thank God. So, yeah, man, it's all yours, brother.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely, guys, thanks for having me on. Always enjoy doing these things, especially getting to speak on the various topics. Really cool questions. I guess my biggest thing at this point is just for the fans out there, everybody listening, just follow me. Follow me on social media. The main handle there is going to be Antony Henry. Yeah, it's an old nickname. ANTNY Henry is the handle pretty much on everything. Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And just keep up with me. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, what the future holds. But right now I'm very content with just having fun with professional wrestling, having the best matchups I can possibly have, and just entertaining the fans and the way that I know how, which is putting on crazy matches that tend to look more like fights than wrestling matches. That's it.
And they look damn good as they do.
And buy the Anthony Henry merch. I don't think they actually sell this shirt anymore.
Definitely do that. Definitely do that for sure.
Buy Anthony Henry merch. He deserves it.
Yeah.
Anthony, man, it's been a pleasure. You were definitely on the list when we started the show of people we wanted to get on. So thanks for coming on, man. It's been a ton of fun, man. Thanks for everything.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
Have a great night. What a great guy.
We say that at the end of every show, dude, but it's true, dude.
Dude, we haven't had one shitty guest yet, except for the one that ghosted us. So, anyway, I'm gonna get so lucky for that.
Everybody gets
one. You might get cracked again, yo.
She cracked my jaw once. I don't know. She probably would again. God bless her, though. I mean, life happens. I joke. Life happens. Things happened. Unfortunately, we didn't have a show last week. This week we had an awesome show.
Hey, before you announce next week's show, dude, I just want to throw a shout out to T-Bone Boudreaux, dude. Robert Pons, dude, he left us yesterday, dude, a good friend of all of ours, and I just want to say rest in peace, Robert.
Yeah, man, definitely. But next week we have my favorite ring announcer in the entire world, GCW lead ring announcer MLJ will be on the show. Gonna be a blast. Hilarious dude I have followed for a very long time. So next week, MLJ will be the guest on the show. October is going to be huge for us. November is going to be insane. Guys, stick with us. It's been a blast. For the boy, Matt Minnick. I pointed the right way this time. Robbie Cutthroat. It's a miracle. It's the first time ever in 2 podcasts that I host. I can't fucking point, but I did it that time. Anyway.
Hey, real quick. I know we're wrapping.
Thing to promote.
Yeah, I'm gonna do. I don't really promote shit, so I'm gonna promote something real quick. If you guys, whoever listens to this, if you guys get the time tomorrow, check out on Twitch. Search the Big Vito brand. Yes, Big Vito from WCW. I'm actually gonna be on his show. It's debut. I'm debuting on it. It's like their 2nd or 3rd episode, but I'm gonna start being a co-host on their show, just like I am here with the fellas too.
Dude, that's fucking cool, Matt. Way cool.
Gonna be good shit. Definitely check out at Uncutt_podcast on Twitter, because I said Titter and that's not the right word. On Twitter, check out LoveX Panda 20. No, Love
not
Panda
even close.
24x48.
Here it is.
On TikTok, check out Robbie Cutthroat on his Grindr profile. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been the Uncut Wrestling Podcast. Robbie, how many clicks is it?
1 click.
Oh my God, he's posing.
2 clicks.
2 clicks.
You got to do it.
This is why we don't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things.